This is VikesNow. We are in the off season, as I mentioned the last couple episodes. Prematurely, didn't want to be here this soon, but alas, we are. We're going to chat today about a couple items. We're going to have an unconventional Kirk Cousins debate. I don't think we're going to debate the merits about whether or not the guy's good, which is what you guys, not you guys, but the viewers and their friends usually do. And then we're going to go through real rudimentary wild card playoff predictions with not a lot of analysis, just rapid fire, who's going to win. But yes, we have Dakota Koep here in Tyler, Ireland, and we're going to have a Kirk Cousins debate, but a strange one. So let's just start. I'm going to have this framed up. So Dakota, if I'm understanding this correctly, this debate is whether or not Cousins will be back in 2024. Not necessarily, is he the right guy for the franchise? Is he a stat patter? The shit we used to talk about for 4 years. We're not doing that today. Tell me what exactly, define the debate that we're going to have between you two.
So we've actually already been having this in our own text, just how we feel if he comes back, what the structure of it's gonna look like, what the circumstances of him coming back are gonna be like. So I think really it's just me and Tyler once and for all settling our feelings about this re-sign, whether it's gonna happen and what the terms of it are.
All right, Tyler,
Pretty much.
does that accurately lasso what we will talk about?
Yeah. It's pretty much, the context surrounding his potential return and whether or not he will, in all honesty, because I think we're on different ends of the spectrum here.
Okay.
I don't think it's like he will versus he won't, where it's like either of us are dead set in that conviction. Maybe
Okay.
Dakota, but for me, there are some things there that are worth unpacking on my end
Okay.
that I want to talk about. So
All right.
looking forward to it.
All right. Well, let's do it. I'll set the table for the Vikings off season. Indeed, they need to re-sign Justin Jefferson, or excuse me, extend him. I think that's a no-brainer. So I don't even know that I'm putting it on a priority list. I think it's so obvious that that will happen. And then you need to retain Brian Flores, which looks like it probably will happen since Jared Mayo is getting the Patriots job outside of maybe a Seahawks interview if that materializes. You need to extend Danielle Hunter, which I also think is a no-brainer. Otherwise, they would have traded him for like a second rounder during October. Probably improve the defensive personnel a little bit, but nothing sets the tone for Vikings football more so than whether Kirk Cousins returns or not. Now, they could do both. They can re-sign Cousins for a year or two and then go draft JJ McCarthy with the blah, blah, blah pick and then let that 20-year-old chill for a couple of years. Or they could even trade up for Drake May and then bring back Cousins for a year and have the best of both worlds. But everything about the future of the Vikings starts as a domino with Kirk Cousins, whether or not he comes back. Now, he usually does. He's a shrewd businessman and gets fat stacks of guaranteed cash. There's a lot of talk about a hometown discount this year, and I think some think, well, yeah, Kirk will be back for 12 million, and if he takes a hometown discount, I firmly believe it'll be between 30 and 40 million, and 30 is being real generous on the Vikings side. So that's prefacing the debate. So we know what we're going to talk about right now is whether or not he comes back based on hints and clues. Ladies first, Dakota, you're going to start. Tell me why it sounds like you are pro he will return, or at least that's your prediction, probably what you want as well. Why is Tyler incorrect and why are you correct?
What gave me away in wanting him to come back? I don't even know what makes you think that. Yeah, no, I feel like the context clues have been both subtly and not so subtly dropped at us. Kwesi going as far as to even say it is my intention to bring him back. In his most recent press conference with Kevin O'Connell. Now, it's no surprise that the players themselves have given him glowing reviews. I mean, Brian O'Neill went on like a 2-minute, 3-minute whole. Kirk Cousins is such a great guy. There's nobody else I would want on center for him. Justin Jefferson, in his very calculated way, has even specified that he wants Kirk Cousins to come back. In fact, I think at some point during this season, it was rumored that part of the reason why we weren't hearing about a re-signing of, or an extension of Justin Jefferson had to do with Kirk Cousins being re-signed as well, which I personally think is giving that take has been given a little bit more fuel just because of the fact that Kwesi in his press conference recently said that he and Justin Jefferson's representation were speaking last offseason. And it sounded like, based on that, a lot of things had been, a lot of T's have been crossed, I's have been dotted. But regardless, back to the topic at hand. I think for me, the biggest fact is that Quasi and KOC, well, yes, they are pushing for this competitive rebuild. They have also been pushing for a locker room culture since the very beginning. That has been one of Kevin O'Connell's focus points. And how can you not bring back the player that multiple players now have basically given their stance on? They have said that they are his captain, or excuse me, he is their captain. Every single player on the Vikings voted him as a captain. There's been nothing but glowing reviews. In fact, when I've spoken to people about it, who know people within the community of the Minnesota Vikings organization, they have even said that after his injury, the building was tense. It was sullen. It was so to me, it's how do you not bring back somebody that brings life into this organization? Now, I'm not somebody who's going to be like, yeah, sign him until he's like, I don't know, like 50. Keep him as our quarterback for the rest of no. For me, I see a 2, maybe 3 year with a option out after a year. I also think that we will probably be drafting his successor, and that will be taking sort of the Brett Favre into Aaron Rodgers approach with having him sit behind Kirk Cousins for a year, maybe 2, depending on how well he develops. But I just, with everything that was said and done, especially in the presser, I don't see how we don't bring Kirk Cousins back. I will also mention that like I said, I do think we'll be drafting his successor this year, and I do want to point out that Quasi was asked about the Wilfs sort of like weirdness when it comes to drafting a quarterback. Quasi debunked it. He basically said that I don't know where that rumor has started from. I don't know where that's from. That is not what we're talking about. We have never said that. So yeah, that's my first take on it.
That reporter said the public narrative that the Wilfs kind of tell you what to do, and he looked dumbfounded, and I thought that was hilarious because we hear that talker a lot. Well, the Wilfs just pull the strings, but then like 4 years ago we said that the Wilfs didn't know what they were doing; they were hands off. So now it's morphed. It's so strange. All right, Tyler, I commend you. I didn't have to use that Trump debate mute button that the presidential committee had to do during the 2020 debates. You didn't jump in at all. So I got to tell you, Tyler, that was not a homer compelling argument. She didn't come at it and say, this is why Kirk's coming back because I love him and I have him on my wall. That was a real neutral argument. So you've got your work cut out. It sounds like you disagree, at least slightly, maybe fundamentally.
Yeah.
Why is she wrong?
I don't want to take everything that's said at a press conference at face value. I don't believe that Quasi is necessarily being disingenuous with his intention to bring back Kirk Cousins. But then again, we have seen this before where Rick Spielman said he had zero intention of trading Percy Harvin, and then it just so happened to happen. That doesn't mean like a Kirk Cousins trade is happening, but there's a lot of time between now and the start of free agency, and talks can realistically break down. And to tell you the truth, I think there's a bit of a power struggle going on right now behind the scenes between Kirk Cousins and Quasi. Kirk wants to retire a Viking. Kirk wants to be the unquestioned starting quarterback of this team for the next 2 to 3 years, like he always has been. He wants the Vikings to build around him and be competitive once again. Here's the thing. The Vikings are not there yet. The Vikings are not, year in, year out, like Quasi mentioned, a competitive team. They're still in that last stage of the rebuild process where they need a couple more young players at some crucial positions before they can be consistently in the playoff hunt year in and year out. And I don't think Quasi wants to commit to Kirk Cousins long term because it just doesn't really mesh with his long-term vision of this team. Like, Quasi wants Kirk back in the bridge quarterback capacity, where you bring him back for a year, he's your starting quarterback next year, but you, like Dakota said, you drafted a guy, and that guy is the face of your franchise moving forward after 2024. That's what I think is going on. And there's that weird tweet that Kirk put out it was really interestingly timed, where he referenced Danny Amendola's quote on playing with Bill and Tom when it was basically what Amendola said was he worked for Bill, but he played for Tom. And Kirk's tweet was something along the lines of, that's the highest compliment a quarterback can receive. And like, why tweet that now? Like that feels like a passive aggressive slight towards Kwesi, where Kirk is basically telling him the players work for Kevin O'Connell, but they play for me. They don't play for Kevin. They play for me. Good luck not bringing me back next year if that's your intention. If you're not gonna, curb to my demands what I want, which is that last big contract, then good luck with Jaron Hall, dude. Good luck with JJ McCarthy or whatever you're stuck with, because that locker room's going to be broken next year if you don't have a reliable starter. So there's this weird passive aggressive vibe from Kirk Cousins right now that, Kirk's a smart businessman. Like, I don't think he'd have any reason to act that way unless something wasn't going in his favor. Like, that's the last trump card that Kirk's gonna pull out, is to go to Twitter and kind of passive aggressively hint at something like that. So
That man never.
I just think there's disagreement between what Kirk envisions his next contract looking like in terms of the context around it, as in Kirk wants, the Vikings to build a competitive team around him and commit to him for the next 2 to 3 years. He doesn't mind taking a pay cut to achieve that, but he wants some reassurances, while the Vikings want to maintain flexibility. They want Kirk back next year. They love the player, but like, he's not part of the long-term vision of this team. So that's what I think is going on right now. And you mind if I mention this, Dustin? Because I know this is probably a little bit off track. You mentioned that Danielle Hunter coming back is like a certainty. No, I don't think that's a certainty. Let me put it like this. The Vikings aren't picking any higher than 11th after this season. And I don't think Washington nor New England is going to trade down. The only team that might be willing to trade down is the Chicago Bears. And you might have to give up a haul to move up to number 1. And when they traded down from number 1 last year, they got DJ Moore out of it. They're going to want Danielle Hunter out of it. What if you do a sign and trade with Danielle Hunter, send them to Chicago, send them a boatload of first-round picks just to get your guy at number 1? That's what I think could happen here as well. So, like, because if the Vikings just say, hey, we're going to keep Kirk for a year and we're going to draft like Michael Penix at 11, like, Michael Penix is a fine quarterback and he'll be a quality starter, but like, he's not changing your franchise around. Like, this is the Vikings' best chance to get a blue chip generational quarterback, and they need to do whatever they can to get to that point. And as much of a great player that Danielle Hunter is, he's hitting the wrong side of 30, and he's going to want an extension. Can you really justify it, or can you try and build this defensive line with other younger players, especially if you keep your second round pick this year? Especially with the cap space that you have. Can you maybe find someone to sort of maybe not completely replace the production, but come in, be a bit younger, and be a bit more promising. That's just another thing too, is how the Vikings decide to get that next quarterback. I think they need to be aggressive and get their guy. And if it means trading Danielle, then that's what they got to do.
The reason that I think Hunter will return, although I don't discount your arguments, is when you start negotiations, you might be at a neutral spot where you don't know if Hunter wants to be back. But he's said 3 times since August that I'm a Viking, I want to be here forever. He said last week purple's the only thing that he knows. So I think when you start the negotiations right there, that like Hunter wants to be here, I think it will be easier to retain him. And the other part is, if you don't get him back or you don't meet his financial needs, then you gotta get 2 edge rushers. And I don't think that Kwesi would be quite that irresponsible. And then I honestly don't buy edge rushers falling off at age 29 and 30. They're the good ones are usually productive until about 32 or 33. So I don't think that it's not like a running back to me. That's why I think, I won't be surprised one iota about anything in this offseason unless they don't draft a quarterback. But Dakota, he mentioned the power struggle that Kevin O'Connell catching strays out here from Kirk tweets that, we just work for you, but we play for this guy. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah also said at the press conference, the end of season 1, that regarding any type of large contracts to anybody, Kirk in particular, he has to protect the franchise. So do you buy into a power struggle, or are these just coincidences that Tyler has erroneously labeled?
I don't think it was a stray at Kevin O'Connell. I actually think it was a stray at Kwesi because it is no secret. In fact, I think it is football's worst kept secret that Bill Belichick also played a general manager role. And so I think people like to discount how smart Kirk Cousins is, and I don't think it was a stray at Kevin O'Connell at all. I think it was at Kwesi, and I think using Bill Belichick and the fact that he was a GM, and I can say was now, was a GM for the Patriots is sort of where he was going with that. And I've gotten mixed reviews on this take, so I'm gonna bring it up anyway because I love being controversial. I don't think it's just Kirk Cousins being weird and cryptic through their tweets. I think the Minnesota Vikings are doing the exact same thing, and now I can already hear the people being like, social media doesn't have anything to do with players and whatnot. You're right. The people who run the social media teams don't control what players play. They don't tell the coaches what you think. However, when it comes to this offseason, when it comes to certain things that they are allowed and aren't allowed to post, there are a number of people that they need to go through. Case in point, the fact that tweet about, or that Instagram story about Dan Skipper that went around again, a couple of hours after that Instagram post went around, the Lions immediately posted a TikTok celebrating Dan Skipper. Mm-hmm. So to compare that to the Vikings, the fact that a couple of days ago in around the early afternoon Central Standard Time, that video of Kirk basically telling us that he would take a hometown discount was going around Twitter, making the rounds, and then 4 hours later, the Minnesota Vikings then not only posted that video as their own video, they then wrote an entire article about it. So to me, it's why did it take 4 hours to do that when we have seen the Minnesota Vikings very regularly clip things from live press conference, from live media appearances, and immediately posting it on Twitter? To me, that is something that had to go through multiple different departments to get okayed to do. Somebody went to the social media team and said, hey, write an article about this. Hey, post this on Twitter, especially because they posted it after, or at least for me, the conversation about that video had already died down. To me, it felt very much like we want to continue to see our fans have conversations about this, because if this season has proven anything to me, it's that Kwesi looks at our tweets. Case in point, the Dalton Reisner acquisition. How we were bullying that man for weeks on Twitter about picking him up, and what does he do? He picks him up. So I feel like as much as people want to say that social media is not a part of this, clearly from Kirk's Twitter post, which again, that man never uses Twitter. His last tweet was on Christmas. That man is an Instagram dad. He goes to Twitter to do something a la Caitlin Thielen. To me, they are both utilizing where they know their fans are, where they know their fans are the most vocal, are the most involved. And I mentioned to you this before we started recording. It was weird to me that, and I'm not saying that I'm that influential, but to me, it's very bizarre that after I had mentioned how important social media was, a lot of things social media wise are starting to kind of be put in center, especially around this Kirk Cousins re-signing. So maybe I spoke it into the universe. I fast tracked the inevitable here. But on top of that, I would also like to mention, well, yes, Kirk Cousins did just recently injure his Achilles, and I'm sure that is weighing somewhat on Kwesi's decision as to how long, how much, etc. he is going to be re-signing Kirk Cousins. I just wanted to mention that at the presser, he did mention that health is a part of the reacquisition of Kirk Cousins. However, he also said that they are looking at what the player is putting in his body. They are looking at the production of the player. And I would like to point out that Cam Akers also ruptured his Achilles a couple of years ago, came back, and was still the fantastic running back that we know him to be. And while, yes, the running back and the quarterback position are somewhat different For me, if a man whose job is primarily taking a ball and running into people can come back and continue to produce, I don't see why a man who who basically takes a ball, takes a couple step backs, and of course I'm simplifying here, takes a couple steps back and throws it, can also come back and do his job. I would also like to mention that, and now I don't know where we're at with this because of Cam Akers' injuries. I don't know what the contingency was. We did potentially pick up a couple of 2026 draft picks, though they are later rounds because of the Cam Akers. Again, don't really know where we're at with that. But I don't know. To me, it's just, it feels like your parents are getting a divorce and they're trying to drag the children in for their opinion, and the Vikings fans being the children and Kirk Cousins and Kwesi being the divorced parents in this situation. But I feel like they being the Vikings, kind of don't want to deal with the same drama that they went through last season with Adam Thielen. And so I think Kirk Cousins being, again, love Adam Thielen, one of my all-time favorite players. Kirk Cousins is smarter. He knows what he has to do in order to stay with the Vikings. He watched everything with Thielen go down. He is going to come at this at a similar but smarter angle. Like I said, he is willing to take a discount where Adam Thielen wasn't. So I think ultimately, while yes, like Tyler said, there is a power struggle, I think Kirk Cousins has more power than Kwesi does, which isn't to discount Kwesi's ability at all. He is phenomenal, as we've seen, with cap space and being able to adjust draft capital. But I also, just really quick before we turn back to Tyler, I do want to turn back to the fact that Justin Jefferson's representation and Kwesi did mention that last offseason they had a lot of really good talks, and it's weird to me that they haven't already announced Justin Jefferson's extension. And we know how much JJ wants to stay with the Vikings. I personally would not be surprised if the reason that we are waiting for the JJ re-signing is because it is also going to be with Kirk Cousins. I think it is going to be a joint re-signing.
Which is really funny because 2 years ago we were told that Kirk got on Justin Jefferson's nerves, which was a falsehood from the beginning. All right, Tyler, your rebuttal before we do rapid fire wild card playoff picks.
Yeah, a couple things here. One, to the social media point, would it surprise me if, people working within the Vikings organization who have to manage all the social media verticals, might know something? Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. But like, what else is there to talk about right now aside from Kirk? Like, they have to cover it regardless. It's not necessarily, oh, they covered it, it means he's coming back. They were gonna do that regardless. Like, they might know a thing or two, but that's their job. Is Kirk, the whole Kirk question is the biggest question on Vikings fans right now on their minds. So, they're gonna wanna have clips from Kwesi and Kevin talking about that. That's just part of their job. And then onto the Achilles thing. Kirk's a quarterback, he's not running around. So why is the Achilles injury going to matter? Well, Tyler Fornes tweeted this out. He said the pocket mobility is a question mark, but so is his arm strength. You generate a lot of your power from your lower half, and the Achilles is a major factor in explosiveness. And we just don't know how much that injury will impact Kirk's performance. So this Achilles injury and the risk management involved in that is a big deal, even with a 36-year-old pocket quarterback. Like, we don't know if Kirk's going to return to form or not. This is a very serious injury. And also, I'm sure there are other teams that would be very interested in signing Kirk. It's, if the Vikings aren't going to make Kirk feel like he's wanted long-term, then there are other teams that may potentially offer him a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal. I mean, the Achilles does hurt that a bit because teams are going to be concerned, is Kirk 100% healthy? But Kirk he's a proven starting quarterback in this league, and he has been for many years. So assuming that they get some injury assurances in that contract, they can work those things out. If Atlanta is, making a better offer for Kirk and they're willing to commit more years to Kirk and more guaranteed money, then it's in Kirk's better interest to go to Atlanta. So, it's not a shoo-in that he's going to return, even though he said that he'd love to retire here, even though Kwesi said it's his intention to bring him back. There are still some serious things that need to be resolved before Kirk Cousins can return, because like when Kwesi started and, before he even got this job, I'm sure he laid out his general blueprint for how he wants to construct this team within a 3-year plan. And, a big part of that is the succession plan at quarterback. So, the Wilfs signed off on it. When they hired Kwesi, they signed off on whatever Kwesi plans to do. So this notion that Kirk is going to win the power struggle over Kwesi, no way. The owners hired Kwesi. The owners hired Kwesi because they had faith in him to choose the next quarterback. Kwesi's going to win this 100%. And that's really all I have to say on that topic. And we can kind of go to the wild card round here, because we only have 6 minutes left remaining time. I can't say anything else.
The good and the bad news is this talker will persist for about 2 months. So we could even have round 2 if something materializes next week. All right, Dakota, Rams at Lions, who wins?
Oh man, see, I love the Lions. They follow me on TikTok, even though they said that the Vikings were a sacrifice. And my grandfather loves the Rams. I ultimately, however, am going to go with the Rams. I think that they look more together as a team, and we can't help but talk about the Detroit injuries that occurred in season 18, or season 18, week 18.
They had
So
so many markers. Are you going to pull your stars yet? Nope. You're going to have this guy get injured. I got the Rams
I'm gonna
34.
let Sam Laporta get injured.
Yeah, I have the Rams 34-31 over the Lions. You, Tyler?
I'll go with the Lions because the Lions are at home. They have home field advantage. I think they have a good enough defense to slow the Rams down, and I think they'll win their first playoff game in a very long time.
Tyler, Packers at Cowboys.
I never root for a division rival, but my Packer friend kind of sent me a message on Snapchat last night, and I was just so dejected from the Viking season. He was like, Packers or Cowboys? And I said, fuck it, Packers. I think the Packers will win. Why not?
I have Cowboys by 8, 30-22 over the Packers, because the Cowboys are basically like the 80s Celtics at home. Dakota, Packers at Cowboys.
Cowboys will finally break that streak purely because I cannot let my friends who are Packers fans have this. I am a Cowboys fan, apparently, and I hate saying that.
Yeah, there's no good choice there. Philly, the reeling Eagles at Tampa, Dakota.
Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are taking that one. I don't even know if Jalen Hurts is going to play, and I think that is a huge part of it. I also think that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles organization, specifically Nick Sirianni, are having some butting heads there too, which I think will affect things. But nope, I take the Buccaneers.
It's wild to me how many people are no-brainer taking the Bucs, like NFL pundits. I have the Bucs by 4, 28-24 over the Eagles. What's your prediction, Tyler? Eagles at Bucs.
I put in 2 predictions for NFC North rivals. I don't like them. I don't like the Eagles either. That being said, Buccaneers, screw the Eagles. Nope.
Back to his roots. Tyler, Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
Who?
Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
We'll go with Buffalo. On that. Yeah.
I have Buffalo 33-20, but that might be a silly score because I guess it's a snow-nami, or at least it's crazy snowing there now. We shall see.
It's Tomlin's destiny to make the wild card round and get bounced immediately. Like that's what he does.
Yeah, they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Dakota, Steelers at Bills.
Bills, that's my AFC team, baby. Bills.
Dakota, in a game that will rival or exceed the Blair Walsh game in terms of wind chill, the Dolphins, the glitzy Miami Vice Dolphins at Kansas City.
I don't know. Is Taylor Swift going to be there? Because no,
probably in a very warm suite. Yes.
Yeah. I hate this. I feel like there's no good answer in this. But I think I'm going to take the Chiefs by like maybe a point or 2. I don't think it's going to be I think it's going to be a close game and a low scoring game, but I will go with the Chiefs.
I wanted to pick the Dolphins over and over this week because they're due for a breakout performance and a signature win, but then I keep remembering they don't have any edge rushers, and the guys that they've signed are just walking in off The Boulevard. So I have the Chiefs 24-17 in a frigidly bitter cold game. Tyler?
Yeah, so I actually wrote an article about this. I think the Dolphins win. The Chiefs have no wide receivers. They're going against Jalen Ramsey and Eli Apple, plus a good set of safeties. They have Andrew Van Ginkel, Emmanuel Ogbah. They have Bradley Chubb, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer. They have a really good defense, and I think they can sort of play, that ground and pound style of football. And when it's going to be as cold as it is, it's going to be really difficult for the Chiefs to just rely on a passing attack. So I'll take the Dolphins for the upset.
All right, and maybe the most interesting game of the week, the Browns at the Texans. Tyler?
Browns at Packers? What?
No, Browns at the Texans.
Oh, Browns at Texans. I was so confused. I'm sorry. We'll go with Cleveland.
I have
I
Cleveland
like
by
Stefanski.
I have Cleveland by 6, although I couldn't really decide a lot of the week, but I'm relying on the Browns defense. And Dakota, take us off air. Texans or Browns in Houston?
Yeah, I'm on that Flacco insanity run. Let's go with the Browns. Let's go with the
There's
Browns.
a decent chance if they win that, then we will have the Flacco Bowl against the Ravens the following week. All right, guys. Tyler wisened me up. I'm going to have your social media credentials on the interface, which people are already watching. So you don't need to plug those. We'll talk to you in 1 week. Lord knows about what. Maybe you guys will fire off another heater of a debate on Twitter. All right.
All right.
All right.
Sounds
Take
good.
it easy. Later.